Okay, behind Ohio State, Penn State, this may, maybe I'll get some pushback on this, but this may be, I think, the game of at least the afternoon window. We have number 17, Tennessee on the road at number 11, Alabama. The Crimson Tide are 8.5-point home favorites, and this game carries an over-under of just 49. Again, I talked about, when's the last time you saw an Ohio State game with a 46-point total? Alabama point totals are back to 2012 Alabama point totals. This game kicks off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS, as it historically does, besides last year. The third Saturday in October. I know it's so deliberate and so to the point, but what a great name for a rivalry. Am I right? It's one of the best.
You're so right, Brett. I absolutely love this game. And again, I'm not a fan of either one of these teams. I just love it. Love it.
I'm a fan of college football. That's why I like this rivalry. And last year, ecstatic theater. I mean, the Vols broke that 15-game losing streak to the Tide. They carried the goalposts out and threw them in the Tennessee River. But Kelly, they haven't won in Tuscaloosa since 2003. They have an average scoring margin of they're losing by an average of 20.6 points per game on the road at Alabama. The Vols took a point of movement on Wednesday from 9.5 to 8.5. That's not super major, but 9's not an insignificant number, so that is kind of worth note. We'll see how, again, I keep harping on it, how it moves later on in the week when we have higher limits. I do have to talk about some injury stuff. Alabama starting safety Malachi Moore, he's been kind of often, he keeps getting re-hurt this year. He's he's a dynamic player when he's on the field. Also, tight end CJ Dipper. Both of those guys are questionable to play. Definitely keep an eye on them. They do impact the game. Tennessee, on the other hand, they lost wide receiver Brew McCoy 2 weeks ago for the season. Ugly injury. If you unfortunately saw the video of that one, I'm very sorry. It was awful, but he's done for the season with a leg injury. The wide receivers for Tennessee, they've been seriously disappointing this year. Squirrel White was somebody I was looking to in the preseason, maybe even be a breakout star, and he still is their best pass catcher, but the bar just really isn't set that high, and losing Brew McCoy, in my opinion, is pretty brutal to this passing offense. Nobody had more than 4 receptions last week. I know it's Texas A&M, but really? You couldn't get a guy the ball more than 4 times? Milton went just 11 for 20 for 100 yards flat, and Tennessee still won that game. Yikes. The Vols, they find offensive success on the ground, but I don't think that's going to continue this week against Alabama. Their defense is just nasty, and they've one of the best and most ferocious pass rushes in the country. Dallas Turner expectedly has been a menace. He's playing at an all-American level. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. But what is surprising is I think the secondary is actually the most vulnerable unit in Alabama's defense. But if Joe Milton doesn't have time to throw, which I'm sure that Saban and Steele are not going to let him happen. They're going to pin their ears back and come after him and force him to make accurate throws. Not his specialty. I don't know that secondary is as vulnerable as it would be against a team with a more dynamic receiving core and maybe a better offensive front, one that can stand up to Alabama's pass rush, if there is any. And Joe Milton melts when the pocket gets busy. He's completing just 28% of his passes, and his ADOT is 21.4. To me, that's inexcusable. To me, that's as soon as he feels pressure, he's like, oh, God, let me throw it 95 yards because that's what I can do. And it's not getting – those aren't high percentage throws. We need a better offensive system. I think Alex Galesh, you see what he's doing down at USF. They're scoring a ton of points. I think he took a good offensive system with them. I'd like to see some adjustments. And if this is the week to do it with a pass rush like this, shorten those throws up, make 1 or 2 reads, let Milton get the ball out of his hand a little bit comfortable. But, man, I just don't know if Tennessee's going to do that. And on the other side, Jalen Milroe, he's very good at completing passes down the field on passes of 20 or more yards. He has 9 touchdowns, no picks, 16 big-time throws per PFF, and 144.8 passer rating. When he's funneled to intermediate throws, 3 picks, only 51% completion. This is how I know he's not an NFL quarterback. He's just good at throwing the ball downfield to good pass catchers. They've kind of turned into, this isn't my thought, I'm definitely stealing this from Twitter, they've turned to an NBA offense where they're exclusively shooting 3-pointers, aka passes 20 yards down the field, or dunks, handoffs, and throws behind the line. That's kind of what they've turned into at Alabama.
It works in the NBA. Can it work? Yeah. Can it work for Alabama?
Efficiency, sure.
Brett, I don't even know if you did it on purpose or noticed. Tennessee losing Brew McCoy for just brutal. Did you do that on purpose?
Yep. No pun intended there. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to make fun of that injury.
No, but the way you said it, I was like, did he mean to do that? It was brutal, and the play on words with the name. Got it. Okay. Just had to ask because you rolled through it so smoothly. 2 things I love the most about college football, Brett. upsets and rivalry games. Hands down, those are the two things. This game always checks at least one of those boxes the third Saturday in October. And last year, it checked the other box as well. I am so excited to see if we can get both boxes checked this year. This game has a watchability score of 9.5. It is the number 2 game of the week for me. It's a top 20 regular season game of the entire year. And that is not, like that 9.5, it's not accounting for the revenge factor that Alabama has in this. It's not accounting for the fact that Tennessee hasn't won in T-Town since 2003. Like, all those things are outside of what I'm quantifying with the 9.5. So it has the ability, the potential to be even higher than that. I have Alabama number 7 and Tennessee number 21 in my most deserving rankings. The Crimson Tide are number 7 in record achievement. They're number 13 in relative scoring margin, while the Volunteers are number 21 and number 18, respectively, in those metrics. Only 5 teams can improve their resume more with a win this week than Tennessee can with a win in Tuscaloosa, where the average top 25 team would have a win expectancy of just 30%. I mentioned Penn State has the biggest opportunity to improve their resume. Tennessee, 5th biggest of all teams here in Week 8. The model has Alabama minus 7.5. It's a 71% win expectancy for the Crimson Tide. That said, Alabama's current power rating of 21.3 and corresponding ranking of number 10 are both season lows. Brett, this is the first time the Crimson Tide have been number 10 or worse in my power rating since 2008. It's been 15 years. Nick Saban's second year in Tuscaloosa that's the last time the power ratings had Alabama at number 10. As I've said multiple times, though, on this show and other places throughout this year, really with regard to Alabama and Georgia for the most part, the Tide don't need to be better than the previous versions of themselves. The Tide just need to be better than the teams on their 2023 schedule. And as things are projecting right now, the model still believes that they are. The Tide's offense is currently number 23, while the defense has been uber efficient. They're ranking now number 5 nationally. That's bad news for Tennessee. It's bad news for anyone, but it's bad news for Tennessee because this is the best opposing defense that the Vols will play all year based on my current numbers, and Tennessee is currently at a season low, number 22, on the offensive side of the ball. This is a top 5 unit for me on offense coming into the year. Haven't lived up to those expectations yet. That can always change, but they haven't lived up to it yet. It's still a good offense. It's just not a great offense like we've seen in recent years. But while the offense is at a season low for Tennessee, the defense is at a season high. They rank number 14 on that side of the ball. My numbers give the edge to both defenses, but the Alabama defense being the only unit in the top 10 here, plus this game is in Tuscaloosa, those to me could be the deciding factors in this game, in the eyes of the model at least. Alabama currently has a 70% chance to win the West and 11% chance to make the college football playoff. With a win, those numbers improve to 75% and 16% respectively. A loss makes it about a 50-50 proposition that Alabama even makes it to Atlanta, and it all but eliminates the Tide from CFP contention, as that would be their second loss of the year already. Tennessee, on the other hand, currently has a 14% chance to make the SEC championship game. A win improves that to a 23% chance. A loss drops it down to just a 9% chance to win the East. Bottom line, I have Alabama minus 7.5. It's a 29% chance that Tennessee earns their first win, as you mentioned, Brett, in T-Town since 2003.
Yeah, if there's a phase where I'm looking for advantages for Tennessee, I think a phase that they can find success in is their pass rush. It's not equally good, but it's very good. They hounded Max Johnson last week, and I know Texas A&M's offensive line isn't that good, but I'm not sure Alabama's passing attack is really all that dissimilar, especially if Milroe's just going to sit in the pocket longer and wait for those downfield routes to develop, because that's really where he finds his success. Tennessee did take some money. I don't know. I'd probably lean them with the points, but I'm not really all that confident in them to be able to score on Alabama here. I think the days of taking Alabama unders are close to being over, considering we've arrived at 49 here. The one play I did make here, I took under Joe Milton's passing yards. It was hung at 197.5 earlier in the week. If you can find that number, I'd absolutely take under. I don't think that if Milton's passing for 100 yards on Texas A&M, who doesn't have a very good secondary themselves, how in the hell is he going to find yards against Alabama with a much better pass rush? That's probably the only play that I feel really good about in this game.